welcome to Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I'm Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 54, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Earlier today, I was rattling my brain around what in the world we're going to talk about because Rangers have done absolutely nothing for the better part of the last 8 years, and we're trying to figure out. I texted Nick, what I just want the Rangers to do literally anything. Well, the Knicks as well, but the Rangers for sure right now. And well, they listened. According to Elliot Friedman, Peter Laviolette is expected to be the Rangers' next head coach. Nick, I mean, hey, if it came down between Laviolette and John Hines, and those are the only two coaches in the world, at least it's not John Hines, right?
So it's funny you talk about this. I was at a wedding over the weekend. The groom is a listener of the show, somebody who got to know over the last few months, somebody who marrying a cousin of my girlfriend, so somebody who listens regularly. And Saturday, in the middle of the reception, it's like 11:30, pretty close to the end of the night, he goes, "What are you guys going to talk about on Monday? Because they still haven't hired anybody." This is 4 hours into this man's wedding, and he goes, "Yeah, you guys still don't have anything to talk about, do you?" That's how deep this level of derangement with Ranger fan goes. Even this is somebody who came into the wedding to Bobo O'Reilly. Okay, Ryan, I know you're listening. We know you're about that action. Unfortunately, the Rangers made an action, and we're at a point now where it is what it is. That's the default male answer whenever there's any adversity in any of our lives. It is what it is. We'll figure it out. I'll do what I can. The cliches that don't really make you feel good about your mental health or anything, but it is what it is. There's nothing we ourselves are going to be able to do about this to make it feel any better, to dull this. I was trying to think of why this felt so defeatist. I think it's because 2 years ago, before they really fired everybody, in that 56 game season, you felt like you saw the light at the end of the tunnel. The younger guys were starting to play more important roles. The team seemed poised to weaponize its cap space to really add. And like we said, the week after they were eliminated by the Devils, they went all in for 1.5 runs. They changed the coach to try and get a little bit more out of the group they have right now. That little bit more out of Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck, Trouba, etc. That little bit more isn't the difference between the Rangers being a first-round exit and winning the Stanley Cup. That's the difference between them winning maybe 2 rounds in the playoffs and then losing to, say, a Florida or a Boston or a Tampa or a Toronto or whomstever. That's the issue at hand here. Like Laviolette, he's fine. Him and Gallant are in the same tier of coach to me, where not really getting more out of what you already have, relatively safe, decent track record, established hockey guy. He's in the club. You more or less know what you're going to get. There's going to be no surprises. So that has been the argument I've read from the Drury loyalists who are still out there for some reason, that, well, he wants to have a stooge back there so that he can manage the team, coach the team from the GM's box, that he wanted a coach who was going to do exactly what he wanted after having 2 years of Gallant, who didn't do exactly what Drury wanted. So that's the argument for the safe coach, not the first-time coach, which you and I are both in agreement we would have preferred, because at least it's a sign that, hey, we understand that this didn't work. We need to try something different. We need to try something that hasn't worked for us. You think about who the Rangers have hired. We're assuming Peter Laviolette, if Elliot Friedman's correct, extensive NHL experience. Gallant, I believe, was at 6 or 7 NHL seasons at that point. David Quinn, first-time coach. Alain Vigneault, multiple years with multiple organizations. John Tortorella, Tom Rennie. The list goes on and on. We know that the Rangers think they're a lot closer than they always are. That's been the defining trait of the Rangers my entire life, that they always talk about this team like it's one player away from a Stanley Cup, that all we need is a little bit of luck to go our way, and we can climb to that mountaintop one more time. And I think it's that fundamental misunderstanding that's going to lead some people to think, okay, this is fine. Peter Laviolette's won a Stanley Cup. He's been to the Stanley Cup finals 2 other times with other teams. This is somebody who's shown an ability to find ways to win with veteran-heavy teams. The counterpoint to that is he hasn't won a playoff series, and I want to say it's 4 years now. The counterpoint to that is this guy wasn't good enough for the Washington Capitals. Like this, the Capitals are on a team on the descent. If you want to argue they're hiring Carberry to kind of focus more on the younger guys, and that really that team's only about getting Ovechkin the goals record the next couple of years, sure. But if Peter Laviolette can't be the field trip chaperone for Ovechkin to break the goal scoring record, what are we doing here?
There is kind of this idea that Peter Laviolette is a guy. And for the Rangers
That's all you can say about
the
him.
Rangers
He's a
perspective
guy.
is that that's what he is like. And
Yeah.
and again, we talked about this last week. If you and I keep bringing up this is your tweet. Like the idea of if you have to show me clips of a coach in standard definition because these clips are that old, then I don't care. I do not care. Please give me somebody with more recent accolades to be excited about. Peter Laviolette won the Stanley Cup in essentially the Civil War era of the NHL. That might as well be 1,000 years ago that he won the cup. Like that was a totally different era of hockey, a different era of the NHL, a different style of hockey, different, like different roster construction, different everything.
Yeah.
Including the broadcast. That was in like 240p SD, just like it was bad. Like, and it was 2006. It was 17 years ago, but it might as well have been 100 years ago. So like, there is nothing there that to me signifies right now that he is better than Gerard Gallant. To me, this is the same person. To me,
It's
this
a
is the same.
move.
To me, this is like if Gerard Gallant were to put on a face mask and then continue to be the head coach behind the bench. This is the same guy. He put on the Joker mask and walked his way behind the bench. It's the same guy. Like there is nothing about this hire that is exciting for me. That is instilling any confidence in me. Now again, like I hope the best with anytime there's a new head coach. I am hoping that I am proven wrong and the Rangers win the Stanley Cup in the first year of Peter Laviolette. Like that's the dream. But if we're being realistic, if we are looking at everything objectively and looking at all the different angles, Peter Laviolette to me is Gerard Gallant with a Joker mask on. This is the same person. So why would you fire Gerard Gallant if you are only going to bring in Gerard Gallant, who went to Spirit Halloween and got himself a mask? It's the same person.
Well, Andrew, this is where we can talk about tangible things that we know now. Because Drury's had a few opportunities to make big decisions. And whenever things have gotten tense, stressful, he's made impulsive decisions. He has been a person who has made impulsive decisions. And there will be people who say, well, he's been pretty good at the trade deadline because he's waited, he hasn't met prices. You think about the circumstances in which he got the job. The conditions for taking the GM and president job were everybody else is getting fired. We need to start winning right now. That was the mandate he was given by the owner and Glenn Sather when he took the two jobs in the spring of 2001. So immediately loads up on older guys who are going to raise the floor but not the ceiling, really lean into the idea of intangibles, toughness, all of the cliche nonsense that we've kind of come to know as not being useful. We know this is somebody who, when he was only the assistant general manager during the bubble playoffs in Toronto, stopped David Quinn's practice to yell at a player who's not under his jurisdiction. You are the assistant general manager. Why are you stopping the coach's practice to yell at somebody who's not on the playoff roster? What are you hoping to achieve by emasculating somebody in front of the rest of a group? That coupled with him and Gallant having a screaming match after losing to the Devils in whatever that was, game 4, that tells me this is somebody who is not in great touch with being able to keep a handle on their emotions.
Why doesn't he just coach the team then? If he knows everything about how to coach a team, then why doesn't he do it?
This is something I was talking about. This is something Fitz talked about. Fitz GSN on Twitter was talking about 2-3 weeks ago. He said, I would respect it more if Drury just fired the coach and said, I'm coaching the team too, because then there's no excuses. If they suck, it's on him. And that's the thing, because they had a really good year last year. Gallant was a Coach of the Year finalist. They had the Vezina goalie. Fox could have been a Norris finalist. They made it to a conference final. All of the stuff on paper looked good. But then once you start, pull out the magnifying glass. You start looking about how they got as far as they did, what it took to get there. That's when you can start to say, well, wait a minute. This roster is not that great. And that's where we're at right now. The Rangers were handed a great hand. They have had so many things break their way. And that's not a knock against them. Teams need luck in their roster construction, let alone their results. Having Panarin want to come here for less money, landing first and second overall in the draft, Adam Fox forcing his way here, Igor Shesterkin developing as long as he did over in Russia, coming over, and immediately being one of the 5 best goalies in the league. All of that to get to this point, and you are still at a point where you need more talent, but you are capped out. That's not like, this Laviolette not inspiring in the slightest. I wish it was someone else. I wish it was Jay Leach. I wish it was Chris Knobloch. I wish it was Mitch Love. I wish it was Andrew Brunette. I wish it was somebody that was even a modicum.
The guy
of
coaching the beer league team. Let's get him in. Because at a certain point, you can only retread so much and expect different results so much. Peter Laviolette, I think I saw a tweet. I forget who. I think it was by John Lane, who writes for NHL.com. He wrote that Peter Laviolette's going to, if this hire goes through, he's going to be the first head coach to ever coach the Islanders and the Rangers in one career. So, like, this man has coached the Hurricanes, the Capitals, the Islanders, now the Rangers. He's coached,
don't forget the Flyers.
The Flyers is like, this man has coached everybody, and he's won one title 17 years ago in 240p. It might as well have been in black and white. Like that's how long ago it was. It might as well be a silent film. Like these accolades from 100 years ago.
It was on the Versus Network. That's how long ago it was.
The OLN channel. That's you're a hockey lifer if you remember that. If you remember OLN. But yeah, like, it just fundamentally doesn't make any sense to me. If Peter Laviolette won the cup like 3 years ago and he just got fired, I would at least see the angle from which Chris Drury was going after. Okay,
I see the angle he's coming from. It's just a bad freaking angle.
I mean,
that's the thing.
I would at least agree with it slightly more if Peter Laviolette was a recent cup champion who got laid off. Like, that would be one thing. But this man, like, I think he and Charlie Chaplin made a movie together. Like, that's how long ago he won the Stanley Cup.
Wow, so you named an actor, Andrew. Good for you.
I know who. Yeah, that's right. I don't watch movies, but Charlie Chaplin, I know who that is. So, like, I don't like. To me, this is like we talked about this for weeks and weeks now. This is the ultimate lateral move. The ultimate lateral move. Like, there's no excitement here. There's no kind of, like, to me, if you hire a new coach or a new face, the idea of, okay, this is the change is here. This is the new face with new ideas, a new direction. This is where this team is going. With Peter Laviolette, there is none of that. This is a guy who's been in the club for 100 years. He's coached the same way. He's like this. This is his pros. These are his cons. You take what you take what you get, and that's the end of the story. So to me, there's just nothing interesting or nothing to me that really says, you know what, this is the right guy for the job. There's nothing about that here, and that is my biggest problem with all of this.
So the two big knocks, you can just have surface level on this. Number one, Peter Laviolette, like I said before, has been available since the regular season ended. The Capitals fired him 3 days after the season ended. It took you 6 weeks to say, okay, I guess we'll hire Peter Laviolette. And the only pro we have about hiring Peter Laviolette, he's not John Hines. That's really the biggest endorsement of Peter Laviolette that there is right now. And that tells you a lot about the state of things right now. Like, I know, I don't think Chris Drury is shrewd enough to have had floated Hines out there to make Laviolette more appealing. This is somebody who very clearly deals in black and white with his understanding of just existence. But it tells me that they did not have a plan. That, hey, and there will be people who say, well, maybe they thought they were going to get Quenneville. Maybe they going to get Mike Sullivan. Thought they were going to get Babcock. That's not having a plan.
It's funny you mentioned Mike Sullivan, because Hunter Hodes, who recently made a comment that how will Larry Brooks say that Mike Sullivan's going to the Rangers now? Well, let me tell you something, Hunter. Until it's official, I will keep saying Mike Sullivan's to the Rangers. That is how deeply invested I am in this. Continue.
But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I'm supposed to believe that this GM has all these grand plans, but they just didn't work out. Then it's not a plan. That's a dream. There is a difference between having a dream and a plan. A plan, you have a clear path to achieving said plan. If you want to hire Mike Sullivan, okay, how do we go about doing this? Is this feasible? Are the Penguins going to click? You're going to hear a click as soon as you finish your sentence, which is what happened. Why would the Penguins have let Mike Sullivan go to a division rival? Why would the Hurricanes have let Rod Brind'Amour go to a division rival? None of the BS that we are being told about what these grand plans were makes any sense. It's why I've been of the opinion there is no grand plan. He waited. Okay, maybe Sheldon Keefe becomes available. That's not a plan. If you do not have a clear means of making it happen, you're dreaming. It's great. It's nice. Like I, Arthur Staple writing it 4 or 5 times in the last month and a half that, oh yeah, they wanted to hire Mike Sullivan or Rod Brind'Amour. That doesn't mean it's true. That doesn't mean it was going to happen.
Right.
You can't give people credit for things that they say. I can say, hey, the hire John Cooper, you said last week or the week before, I forget which one. I can say that. I'm not an NHL GM. I do not get paid bazillions of dollars for my opinion. I can say, hey, maybe you should just hire a good coach from another team. You don't deserve credit for that. And that's my big gripe here, is he's been given A+ for okay moves. And then when it comes to the bad ones, it's, well, you got to see what the big plan is. There is no big plan. They have made impulsive decision after impulsive decision. They felt they got out physicaled, out bodied. Tampa outlasted them, so they went and got Vinny Trocheck, who is a fine hockey player but makes too much money for what he is. Does not provide any excess value based on how much they're paying him, and doesn't fill a need that they had. He doesn't play the style of hockey that they need. But we need somebody who's tougher. We need somebody who plays a straight line game. Well, nobody else on your team plays a straight line game. So dropping one straight line guy is not magically going to make the other not top 9 forwards start playing in a straight line manner. And that's the issue here. I do not think the Rangers understand what makes these guys successful. They just see somebody who's had success, drop them in their team, and then express all kinds of amazement that it's not working. What do you mean these guys aren't good? What do you mean they're not playing well? What do you mean our captain's the 5th best defenseman on our team?
Chris Drury has assembled the Rangers roster like you would in NHL 23 be a GM,
Yep.
where you just look at overalls and say, "Hey, this is a great team. Go out and win." That's essentially what they're doing. And in NHL 23, it's pretty straightforward that, like, hey, if your fifth defenseman is an 87 overall and you have like all of these really good guys on paper on your be a GM team, then you should win a lot of games and you should win the cup. Reality is not that simple.
No.
And well, also Jacob Trouba is not very good at hockey, but that's not,
EA been
let's
overrating him for a while. He's been in the mid 80s.
let's
He's
put
been
that
in the mid
aside.
80s for quite a
This is
while.
not the week for Andrew to yell about Jacob Trouba, but like overall, if you look at guys that like, hey, this guy worked really well in that system, but hey, we're gonna sign him and just expect him to do well in a new city, new environment, new head coach, new everything. Just gonna drop him here, and he's an 86 overall. He'll be fine. Like this is the approach that the Rangers are kind of looking at. And now again, I'm simplifying it a little bit, but that's essentially what they're doing. Is like this is how it reads as somebody that follows this team. Is they are not looking at
The fit.
how a player can fit into the jigsaw puzzle that is the Rangers. They look at, hey, Vinny Trocheck fit really well in the Hurricanes puzzle pieces in the Hurricanes puzzle, so he could be a great fit here. But he didn't stop to think, does the piece fit? Does it fit into the puzzle? Because you can, like, if you're looking for one of those pieces that's like that's a corner piece, and you think that Jacob Trouba can fit in there, but none of his angles support that corner piece, then why are you bringing him in here for? Does it fit?
One of the things that's funny about that, you saying that, is that's always the rebuttal we people in the analytics community get from people who have a bunch of numbers at the end of their ats, and profile pictures wearing Oakley sunglasses is it's not a video game. You don't know what you're talking about. Numbers aren't the entire thing. You should tell the GM of your team that, because he is not just him. This goes back to Jeff Gorton's tenure as GM as well. It goes back to Glenn Sather's tenure as GM. They like big names. They like guys who have counting stats, they don't really care about how they get the counting stats. They just want the counting stats. They drop them on the team, and then it doesn't work for a number of reasons, because like we said, nothing happens for one reason. And it gets to be, you're at the point now where you are effectively capped out. You cannot add to this roster without sending somebody out. They are going to trade Gaudreau this summer if they intend to add anyone. If they just re-rack this team with Will Cooley and Zach Jones in the spots open, I have a hard time believing that's going to be what Drury's going to die on his shield on, because I'll say this now. They miss the playoffs next year. I could see both of them getting fired. I could see both of them getting fired if the Rangers miss the playoffs next year. I don't think that's going to happen because, frankly, Igor's too good.
Yeah.
In the regular season, they will play well enough to win 45, 50 games. I do want to circle back to something we were talking about a few minutes ago, and I lost my train of thought when it was my turn to speak. But once again, bad things can be blamed on Jordan Binnington. We were 9 minutes away from Barry Trotz being the GM, coach, and president of this hockey team. And Jordan Binnington shit his pants and let in 2 goals from the blue line. We were 9 minutes away from none of this happening. From Barry Trotz being the coach of the team, having an outsized influence in the personnel, because that was very clearly something Barry wanted that he didn't get on Long Island, why he left the job, why he ended up taking a general manager job with Nashville. And to be frank, I've heard better things from Barry Trotz as the GM of the Predators in the 2 weeks he's been the GM than Chris Drury in the 3 years he's been the GM of the Rangers. But that's neither here nor there. It's just, again, this is Jordan Binnington's fault. I hope that man has the most miserable existence.
I forgot about that. Yeah, no, I mean, the St. Louis Blues, for all of their faults, probably the biggest one is letting Binnington continue to play hockey, because that man's the reason the Rangers are where they are right now. And like that is the most like that
Hang on. I know what I need to do. You keep talking. I had a good idea.
It's that meme of I think it's from that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think of I don't know the characters because I don't watch the show, but like one of the characters is like has like all these things like on the map, and he's pointing at something like with this crazy expression on his face. Like that's essentially what this whole conversation is. But like they really were, if they lost that game against the against the Blues, which they should have lost because they were terrible that game. They only came back in that third period. You know, Jordan Binnington was atrocious and they scored a bunch of goals and they won. But if they had rightfully lost that game, as you said, like this would have been a totally different path that the Rangers went down on, because like it is fair to assume, it is very probable to assume that if they had lost that game, there was going to be a lot of changes. And so it's all Binnington's fault. You know what? At the end of the day, this is where the Facebook fans win, because it's not on Chris Drury anymore. It's on Jordan Binnington.
It really is. Unfortunately, yeah. I'm in the process of making an important meme I can tweet from the show account. But the overarching theme, and this is something I've gotten in my replies more than once the last few weeks, is it feels very clearly that Drury's pretty reactionary, that he's making the decisions based on stuff that has happened as opposed to accounting for what will happen. And that's why they're kind of strung out now. They don't have a lot of flexibility. All he can do to try and get better results is to change the coach. And that, unfortunately, is where we're at right now. Changing the coach may or may not help, but at the end of and I hate saying at the end of the day because I sound like I'm on PTI, but at the end of the day, you need more from your guys.
At the end of the day, it is what it is. How about that?
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm trying not to think about this. I'm really trying. Like, I'm looking at the box score from that game, and the Rangers were down 3. They were down 4-2 going into the third. K'Andre scores, Alexi Lafreniere scores, and Chris Kreider scores in the final 16 minutes of regulation. And that saves his job. That is what saves Gallant's job, is those 3 goals in the third period and Jordan Binnington melting down.
Great. I'm so happy the Rangers won that game so that we can end up talking about how Peter Laviolette's going to be the next head coach of the Rangers. I for one, I'm so thankful for that dweeb over there in St. Louis who fights everybody because he can't stop a beach ball. I for one am so happy about that.
We're in hell, bro. I hate to be that guy, but this is not the good place. We are not where we thought we would be a few years ago. The entire elevator pitch for sucking in 2018 and 2019 was that eventually there would be young guys who could carry a lot of the load. Best I can do for you is two 45-point forwards, one of whom is above average defensively, and the other one who looks nothing like a first overall pick. So, other than that, things are going very well based on flushing 2 years down the toilet.
Uh, yeah, I like it's, and I don't want to be somebody that's like, oh, this is all negative, like this is all going down the drain. But we have to look at this objectively. And again, like if we're wrong and the Rangers
Oh,
win the
we'll
cup
admit
with
it.
Laviolette, that's great. We're gonna be the first ones at the party, the first ones at the parade. Like we are gonna be, like we're gonna be as excited as everybody else there. But objectively, looking at the place that the Rangers are in right now, to place this kind of blind happy-go-lucky, oh, it'll be fine, just you wait, everything's gonna be peachy. Nah, bro, like that's not how reality works.
Nope.
This whole thing of like you're so negative, you're so this, it's like, okay, well, that's because we live in reality and not everything is positive. Like Peter Laviolette is not a positive hire. The moves that the Rangers have
At
made are
best, he's
also
neutral.
not. Yeah, at
At
best he's
best,
neutral.
he's neutral.
The moves that the Rangers have made are at best neutral as well. They're not positive either. Like these are situations. Even the biggest highlight of all this is like the Patrick Kane situation, where we spent literally months talking about why that's a bad idea. The Rangers did it anyway. He scored that one goal in the playoffs that made everybody lose their minds, even though he did absolutely nothing else the entire rest of the way. Like and because he made that one good play, everybody that is a Patrick Kane defender goes, "Oh well, but he made that one good play. What are you talking about? But he made that one good play. Hey, but he made that one good play." It's like, dude, you have to look at everything. You can't just look at one particular thing and say, okay, this is like, you can't read one page out of a book and expect to know the entire story. You have to read it all to understand the entire picture of what is going on. And right now, based on June 12th of 2023, when the Rangers are supposedly or slash expectedly or will be hiring Pierre Laviolette, it is there's nothing for me right now to be like, yeah, like this is a positive direction for this team. I don't see that, and that is at the core my issue with what's going on with this organization right now.
Okay. Okay. Originally, I had, a slideshow. I had a good like 30 minutes of talking points about how to fix the Rangers defense schematically, what they could do maximize Braden Schneider a little bit more, how they can get more out of Jacob Trouba. And then we got the news we got today at about 3 o'clock that they're probably going to end up hiring Peter Laviolette. And I've had like 6 different people text me Laviolette, LOL. And 3 of them are Capitals fans, which makes sense. And
Yeah,
that's really how
yeah.
I like to measure that's how I like to measure any transaction, hire, firing is if you go on social media, and yes, social media is a very siloed view perspective of anything. But if you go in the replies of any of the insiders after breaking news and you see laughing, you see LOL, you see that's generally a decent gauge in understanding what other people think of the move. Because you will see people being like, oh, damn, that's good. I'm scared of them now when it's a good move or a good decision. The Rangers hiring Peter Laviolette is being met with unanimous laughter and at best, tepid golf applause. At best, they're getting this. That is the absolute best. Like I said before, the one notch you've got if you're Peter Laviolette is you're not John Hines. You are not a Devils reject. You're an Islanders reject. You're a Hurricanes reject. You're a Flyers reject, a Predators reject, a Capitals reject. But at least you're not John Hines. That is what you got for you going for you right now. And sure, the Rangers will probably make the playoffs. But by the GM's own admission, the goal is to win the Stanley Cup. What is the GM prepared to do to make that more than just a goal? Because right now, winning the Stanley Cup is like hiring Mike Sullivan. It's a great idea. I would love to do it. But there is no path for this group to get there that isn't Shesterkin turning into Dominic Hasek for 2.5 month and a half NHL playoffs. What, like a month and a half, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 10 weeks?
Depends on how long the series go, but yeah,
but about 10 weeks. That's the plan for the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup right now. Is Igor Shesterkin to turn into Dominic Hasek for 10 weeks, and that's not a plan. Sure,
that's what Florida did.
Yeah, and look what happened once he stopped being Dominic Hasek.
That's right.
The
Panthers have realized. Oh yeah, the Stalls are not good at hockey talk.
I was watching the game the other day, and I saw the graphics, the lineup graphics, and I was like, they have 2 good defensemen. How did they make the Stanley Cup final? Like, I was genuinely like, they have Brandon Montour, who doesn't give you anything defensively. He's good offensively. He's got good puck skills. And you've got Ekblad, who's got, like, the knee cartilage of a 75-year-old. Those are your only 2 good defensemen.
Radko Gudas is pretty good.
He's decent. He's
I would rather have him on my team than some of the people that we have on our team right now. But yeah, he's not like a top 2 defenseman, not one of the best in the league. But
he's a good defensive defenseman.
He's somebody that if you put in the top 4, top 6, he's a reliable defender.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Okay, so 3 out of 6. By that measure, okay, I can see the argument. Hey, maybe the Rangers aren't that far away. We have been doing this since the 2004-2005 lockout. They cannot be just as far as the goalie wants to take them. They had one of, if not the best goalies of the modern era, and the best he got was 5 games in the Cup final to a team that, with a little more scoring, the Rangers probably could have beat. You lose 3 games in overtime, 2 of them in double overtime. Okay, I get it. You got a bad luck of the draw. But only 1 Cup final, that's where you start to get like, well, so we're just going to do this in perpetuity? They're going to keep spawning great goalies and maybe making conference finals once every 4 or 5 years? That's the best this team can do? And that's what's so frustrating about it is they've got infinite resources, and they don't put any of it into making the organization run better. They put it into garbage. They put it into... Okay, I'm not going to shit on the marketing campaigns but God, man, what are we pissing our money away on? Have as many analysts and assistants as you can. Put as much resources as you can into getting a better scouting department, a better director of player personnel, a better leader of player development. Because we've been complaining about player development, I want to say, since they were using wooden sticks. I might be wrong about that, but...
they have Jed Ortmeyer and Tanner Glass, so I don't know how you could possibly do better. I genuinely
just guys being dudes, man. The Leafs have somebody who's a medical doctor and a gold medalist in 2 as one of the directors of player development. Best I can do is a guy who had to retire because of a medical condition, and somebody whose best traits were that he got punched in the face a lot and was good.
Scored that goal on Carey Price.
Hey, you know what's crazy about that? That you say that? That game is the last time the Rangers won a playoff game where they didn't score a power play goal. Game 1 of the 2017 playoffs, where that was the last time the Rangers won a game with a power play. Because I was looking into this because I wrote that thing about Mika Zibanejad a few weeks ago about how when they don't score on the power play. So I went through every single box score between this year against the Devils all the way back until I found the game where they won without scoring a power play goal. But yeah, that goes to show you they rely too much on the power play and on the goaltending, and that's where the Rangers are at. Sure, they can make the playoffs. Maybe you want to argue, well, the isn't as good. Maybe right now you're probably the 4th or 5th best team in the East. You have the best or one of the best goalies in the world. The GM will say, I'll roll the dice. I'll spend another draft pick at the deadline, add another top 6 forward, and see what happens. That's where we're at. We're Sisyphus rolling the ball up the hill, doomed to repeat what we just did with Henrik Lundqvist, now with Igor Shesterkin.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel right now. If there was maybe even like a massive prospect the Rangers are developed, like a Shesterkin, like if the Rangers had a forward like Shesterkin that was like hidden away in the depths of Sweden or somewhere that wasn't getting coached by the Rangers system, because we all know that they can't coach a young player to save their absolute lives. If they had, if they had a Connor Bedard type, I'm not saying obviously Connor Bedard because he's a generational number one talent, but like,
Bro,
if they
I'll
had
take a Travis Konechny in the pipeline right now. I
so,
don't
like,
even.
there's nobody in the pipeline that is like, this
That's
is
a needle
going to
mover.
change the dynamic of this team.
Nope.
There's nobody in the pipeline. There's nobody currently that is feasibly out there that the Rangers could acquire that'll currently do that without moving a lot of pieces out. And Peter Laviolette is just Gerard Gallant with the Spirit Halloween mask. This is it. This is who we got. And take it or leave it. Like, there's no getting out of what the Rangers have right now with Chris Drury at the helm, and this is who we want. This is who we got, and eat Arby's.
Yeah, that's best I can do for you right now is eat some Arby's. Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe they can get lucky. Maybe they can get on a crazy PDO heater like Vegas has. But the thing is, Vegas is actually good at 5-on-5, and they blow teams out in the games where they have the crazy PDO because the other team is just funneling pucks on net from every angle because they're down 3 goals. Yeah. Anything else you want to get in before we wrap up?
You want to laugh at Darren Dreger really quickly because he's an old man influencer instead of an insider?
Nah, I can't touch that one.
No?
I can't touch that one on air. If you want to make fun of him, you can, but I can't touch that one.
I mean, it's just, he's out here tweeting like, "Oh, thanks to whoever the golf thing." I don't even know what it was, but like, he got some golf thing. He's like, hey, look, I got the sponsored thing. Look at this. Instead of doing anything remotely related to his job. That's, we'll just continue to talk about this every week, because you know what? It happens every week from the insiders. I just, it is the most frustrating thing on the planet that the NHL has insiders that care more about being influencers than insiders. Whereas, again, like in basketball media, where I'm fortunate enough to work in, Woj and Chris Haynes and Shams and all these guys, they care about the scoop first and sponsor stuff later. I just wish it was the same in the NHL. That's all I want.
Yeah, it would be nice. Like, we just did an entire 35 minutes of this podcast based on a tweet that may or may not bear out true because nobody can verify anything.
Just I make it make sense. I just want good insiders again. Can Woj switch careers and be in the NHL, please? That would make my day. Is if Woj would not switch careers, like just switch sports leagues and say, "Hey, I'm actually a big hockey
Hey, bro,
fan."
Shams be breaking everything. Shams had Trump getting COVID. Shams
did have a lot of
miscellaneous
non-basketball stuff. Yeah, like he's breaking like football draft tweets. Like he's got sources in other places. So yeah,
I need to know how Shams knew Trump had COVID, because that was so ridiculous that he was the one who wrote that.
Yeah, like that you know what? Like, that is silly. If nothing else, that is the silliest thing I've ever seen as somebody on sports Twitter media. Like, that is crazy to think about. Like, this is a man who's breaking like NBA things. Occasionally, he has inside information on NFL stuff, and then he's like, "Hey, by the way, this guy is COVID." Dog. Like, how do you know? You know what? But you know what though? It doesn't matter because Darren Draker's an influencer, so who cares?
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Little Bitty Blue Podcast. We're available on all the major podcasting platforms, YouTube as well. Follow along on Twitter and Instagram. If whenever they formally announce this hire, if one of us is free, we'll throw something short up just to kind of tie a bow on these thoughts. But we will actually start talking about hockey next week, because there won't be news to break, hopefully, because there's no trades to make because they have no cap space. So
we have the draft soon. Soon, TM.
Yeah, soon. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Later.